tutorial starts with a song, but it's only a few seconds long.
Computer animation. Computer animation. Computer animation.
Let's get started with animation. Hello friends, I hope everything is fine with you. I wanted to actually squeeze 3 things into this tutorial, but I changed my mind. I just put one thing which I just recently learned into this tutorial, so I share it with you. The reason for this singularity is that it's easier to find, because probably most of the people who watch this video see it a couple of years later after it's been published. We're in summer 2019. It's about color and ambient occlusion and how to use both things for a very rich and contrast rich texture. What is ambient occlusion? I won't get into this, but you find lots of ambient occlusion files on the internet, and these, for example, are from Nikola Damjanov, who lives in Belgrade and creates amazing textures, and these are just a few which he published under the Creative Commons license. That means you can use them freely. For example, these ones here, so different. And we're gonna use these textures here, actually only 2 of them. The opacity means how you can look through that object, and the opacity is white. That means you cannot look through the object at all. This is the normal. The normal is the bump map. It's basically telling you where Maya should simulate height and lower areas. This is the metallic function here, and it's black. That means it's not metallic at all. This is the height map, which is the displacement shader, and this is the basic color. This is the, I mean, it's always the most prominent icon anyway, because it shows color. It's 15 megabyte large, a TIFF file. That means it's very high resolution, just wonderful. And the other thing we're going to concentrate on is the ambient occlusion. Apart from that, we have the specular roughness and the specular level here, which are interesting too, but we're only using these 2 now in the scene which we'll create. Just a simple scene with a single light, just to show you how these 2 go together. And now we'll move to this icon, which is leading us to the Hypershade window, because now we need it. We need to make certain connections. The Hypershade window starts with an open big space here, and here is our Arnold shader, the shader we just created. It's white, nothing special, and when you click on this icon, there are other ways to do this as well, but this icon is just conveniently placed. You get the network of this shader. It basically has this part here, which is what we see in the scene, and this is the machinery where the whole shader is being made. And it has lots of things here, like base, space, color, diffuse, roughness, metalness, specularity, specular color, specular roughness, transmission, etc. The transmission would be the opacity in this case. But now we'll introduce something for the color. And there are several ways how you can get these things into this part here, and the most easy way, actually these files are on a memory stick. I just select both of them and move them into that field. What Maya does now, it creates 2 place 2D texture nodes. This one and that one. One is called 1 and the other one is called 2. And actually we need only one of them. So let's delete this one. Just press delete. And this does not work, the base color, if it doesn't have a placement node. So it needs this node or some kind of node. When you double click here, or actually just single click here, you see all the combinations, all the connections actually, from the place 2D texture to this file, to this image. They're so complicated, and if you start hooking them up to this one now, because we want to use the same texture placement here for this color, the easier way, and let's click here to minimize it, is by pressing and holding the control key. I'm pressing and holding the control key, and now I use the middle mouse button, which is always a connection button in Maya. And with the middle mouse button you just drag this over here. Nothing seems to happen, but you see this little plus sign move here, and I drop it here, and now it's a default connection, which is quite amazing, and it's almost like a little hack, and quite nice to see. So this is the ambient occlusion here, basically the scene or the texture under an overcast day with a cloudy sky, no sun, and no color, which is an interesting thing in combination with the color effect. That's what we're getting to now. Okay, so we have two files now, the ambient occlusion, which I move a little bit down here. Doesn't matter where I move it, it's just a matter of arrangement, but not of what comes out of this. And now the typical thing is you use from the base color, the out color, and put it into the base color of our shader. And now we have the connection made, and this is the texture we have here. And in the scene as well, when we click here, we see it working. Now it's finished, 14 seconds, and when we click here, we save this image in the memory of Maya. Because now we go back to our Hypershader and we disconnect this. And when we use the ambient occlusion here, of course, when we go to base color, this is what we see. You can imagine what's coming out in the scene now. Let me show you briefly. But that's certainly not the approach to take, how to make usage of the occlusion. The trick is the following. We need a node which combines the two of them, combines the base color and the ambient occlusion by multiplying the values for RGB, red, green and blue, of both images. And there is a multiply node in Arnold, in Maya, which is like all Arnold nodes starting with the letters AI. So I type in tab, I just use the tab key here, and now I type in AI, and then I get a whole selection of AI whatevers, Arnold whatevers, and multiply, and here it appears. This node does nothing else but using two inputs, multiplying the values of the inputs and putting a color out, which we can hook in here. Select the output here of the ambient occlusion, put it in input 2, the base color in input 1, and the out color to the base color right here. Now it looks a little bit darker. And how does it render? You think it looks the same. Let's wait until we get the result. 44 seconds, just a little bit longer. And now we click here in order to save this here as well. So the first image was this one, brighter. And the second one is this one. Now if you have a closer look, first one, second one, you have much more contrast in the second one. That means the ambient occlusion is working in a very subtle way. This is much more flat than this image. You might need to raise the intensity of the light because we have more contrast now, for example in these areas here, which were slightly brighter here, but if you have a look here, for example, much more contrast, So this subtle effect is done by the combination of the base color and the ambient occlusion via a multiply node, which multiplies both value vectors, basically vectors, and use it as the input for the base color. And thank you, Nicola, for these really great files.